Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down each SEC football bowl game from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the All-State Sugar Bowl. That game features the Ole Miss Rebels and the Baylor Bears. This game is going to be played on Saturday, January 1st at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time in the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. This game is going to be broadcast on ESPN. From a betting perspective, this game opened with Ole Miss as a 1.5-point favorite. And as of the recording of this video, that holds true. Rebels are 1.5-point favorite. The over-under in the game opened at 50.5 and is up all the way to 56 as we record this video. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, are we expecting some points in a late night matchup on New Year's Day?
Could be. I mean, it's going to be a great matchup. Ole Miss offense versus Baylor defense especially. But anytime you can get a Lane Kiffin game and a New Year's Six game, I think both of us will be excited to tune into it. But why don't you tell us about the weather in the Superdome and who's going to play and not play in the game and Nick's news and notes.
Yeah, so spoiler, the Superdome is indoors, so we don't have any weather concerns for this one. On the injury side of things, I would also say we got to include potential opt-outs, COVID issues, transfer portal, a lot of things going on in the bowl season. Some things that you would want to watch all the way up until the hours before kickoff before you make your bets. But we're recording this one a couple days out. So I'm going to give you some of the things that we know about right at this moment that you may want to be concerned about with these two teams. But again, monitor it all the way till the end because you just never know what this bowl season is going to bring you. On the Ole Miss side of things, I'll start with offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby is leaving for Oklahoma. And depending on who you talk to, that's a pretty big deal for the Ole Miss offense in the long term. But the good news is he's going to come back and call plays for the Sugar Bowl for the team. So you shouldn't have to worry about that as you bet this one. And the most important player for Ole Miss that we know is going to be playing is quarterback Matt Corral. In a season of opt-outs for a lot of key players that are getting ready for the NFL draft, we're going to see Corral play one more time in an Ole Miss uniform. And that's important for betting this game, but it's also important for a program that's looking for an 11th win. It's really nice of him to come back and play. I know he's got NFL aspirations and a lot to potentially lose by playing this game. So Rebels fans will be excited to know he's supposed to be in this one. Other name to watch for is kicker Caden Costa is questionable for this game. On the Baylor side of things, starting quarterback Jerry Bohannon's had a hamstring injury, but he's expected to return for this bowl game. But backup quarterback Blake Shapen's shoulder injury is going to keep him out of the Sugar Bowl. And then I would just set the tone for this one, Christopher, with my news and notes before I hand it over to you to give everybody the betting analysis that they've been looking for. My question on the Ole Miss side of things is, can the Rebels finish what has already been a historically relevant season for Lane Kiffin? In just his second year in Ole Miss at Oxford, he's going to have a chance for a rare 11-win season for this team. Only the state of Alabama has been able to hold Kiffin and the Rebels in check so far this season. Alabama and Auburn are the only two teams to beat them. They've won 10 other games aside from that, and I can't emphasize this enough. Having Matt Corral play in this game, in spite of his decision to turn pro, is a huge win for this program. He ranks top 20 nationally in 8 different categories. I could run through all of them, but they're the ones you would expect: total offense, passing yards, completion percentage, passing efficiency, on and we go. And Corral is one of only 4 FBS quarterbacks with at least 20 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns. This offense runs through him, and having him available makes them a much more viable pick to bet on in this game. On the other sideline, got a familiar face and former LSU defensive coordinator Dave Aranda. He's the head coach at Baylor. And if you haven't been paying attention, he's turned that program into a powerhouse really quickly. He had a little bit of a down year in the transition from Matt Rule to him in 2020. That's a weird year for everybody, but he's got them rolling in 2021. They won 11 games. They're the Big 12 champions. And I don't know that we could say anything more glowing about this guy. We know what he can do. He was the defensive coordinator for the Tigers national championship team in 2019, produced so many NFL caliber players during his time at LSU, and his Baylor defense has picked up right where you would expect that to be from what we used to see here in the SEC. Baylor is one of 4 teams with 4 ranked wins this season. That's them, Oklahoma State, and then you got Georgia and Alabama out of the SEC that have done that. And if you're wondering who those wins were for the Bears, they beat Iowa State, they beat BYU, they beat Oklahoma, and they beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. A couple more interesting tidbits. I'll hand it over to you, Christopher. Ole Miss is 12-2 in their last 14 bowl games, and that's dating back to the 1992 Liberty Bowl. So some positive track record for people wanting to back the Rebels here from a previous regime standpoint. And then Ole Miss and Baylor are meeting for just the second time on the football field in the history of both of these programs. Baylor won the lone meeting between the two schools back in 1975 in Waco. Things have changed a little bit for both of these programs since 1975, Christopher. So when we're talking about making money on the Sugar Bowl in 2022, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, Lane Kiffin said, get your popcorn ready before the Alabama game. This is the game to get your popcorn ready, in my opinion. According to Chris Landry, who usually knows what he's talking about, gets paid by a lot of SEC programs to do coaching, consulting, and scouting. And according to him, Lane Kiffin was a bit perturbed that despite the Ole Miss season that has been as good as it has been, that he got no interest, basically, really, from any of the big jobs that were open this season. So what I would expect from Kiffin is he wants to showcase how good he is and how good his Ole Miss program is on a national stage in the Sugar Bowl, so that maybe next year when some more big jobs come open, maybe the athletic directors of those jobs are thinking of him then. Not that Ole Miss is not a big job, but it sounds like Kiffin's got his eye on an even bigger opening if there is one that becomes available. So the other thing is we've all seen Kiffin go for it a lot on fourth down, be aggressive. He isn't opposed to throwing in a special teams fake either. And this being a bowl game, you could see that as well. And of course, Dave Aranda has, as you mentioned, back to his LSU days, has always had very, very good defenses. And, the Baylor defense and the Ole Miss offense are pretty equal statistically coming into this game. And you mentioned Corral wanting to make a final impression on NFL scouts. Well, we've seen Ole Miss just get decimated by injuries, particularly at receiver, but even Corral was banged up for a long time, had some injuries on the offensive line as well. So I think in terms of the break between the regular season and the Egg Bowl and the bowl game, I think going back to the Thursday before Thanksgiving since Ole Miss last played, this Ole Miss offense should be as healthy as it has been all season. So I'm interested to see what that looks like when they are firing on all cylinders. On the other side of the ball, now Baylor's offense is just 41st in EPA per snap. And you mentioned Bohannon, who got hurt on November 20th against Kansas State. He's an effective runner, but a Baylor quarterback has only thrown for more than 270 yards in a game this season once. But Baylor likes to run the ball, and that can be lethal against Ole Miss, which plays a lot of zone, plays a 3-2-6 base. So, you got 5 people in the box, or at least you got 5 people who are not defensive backs on the field. And that usually lends itself to an advantage if you're a team that's good at running the football, and Baylor concentrates on the run. But Abram Smith and Treston Ebner are the 2 guys to watch for Baylor. They have almost 2,200 rushing yards by themselves, and Ole Miss is a dreadful 126th in EPA per snap against the run this season. So Baylor will surely try to shorten the game and keep the Ole Miss defense or the Ole Miss offense on the sideline, try to control the way this game is played with the running game. And you talked about the over, Nick, at the top of this video, going from 50.5 to 56. The market clearly likes the fact, if you're an over better, that Matt Corral is going to be playing in this game. So I think that's what's really moving the number there. But Nick, why don't you tell us, our listeners, what gift you have for them for New Year's Eve, and let us know how you're betting on this game.
Sure. So with bowl season in full swing, our partners over at Action 24/7 Sportsbook are celebrating with special deals for new customers. For a limited time only, you can get your deposit matched 100% up to $800. So if you sign up today and make your first deposit using code SOUTH14, that's SOUTH14, Action will double your money up to $800. So if you download the app or visit action247.com to get started today. Action 24/7 is by Tennesseans for Tennesseans, and you've got Action. Christopher, I'm excited. I've been a little bit tepid during bowl season in placing bets. So many opt-outs, so many things that have kept me from feeling confident in many of our picks. But this one, I think, is going to be a really good football game. Both these teams seem really motivated to come out and put an exclamation point on a great season from both of them, really. So I'm expecting for an entertaining game, and then I'm also expecting one that we can bet on and treat it more like it's a regular season game than one of these exhibition games and some of the maybe that we've seen from the bowl games earlier in the bowl season. So for that reason, I'm on two things in this one. I think I like Ole Miss to win, so I'll lay the 1.5 and follow Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin and the Rebels into the Superdome and hope for a win here. And then I'm going to, I love Lane Kiffin overs. We've talked about that all season. There was a stretch of period where I was making money betting Lane Kiffin unders, but I think at 56, it's time to get back on the Lane train, even with Dave Aranda's defense on the other side. And let's push this one over 56. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm on over 56 as well, but I'm not super confident on that one just because, as I mentioned, I think Baylor's going to try to take the air out of the clock and run the ball. And I think if they're able to do that successfully, maybe they can really limit the possessions. But that could go the other way, as bad as Ole Miss's run defense is. Maybe if they run the ball, they'll actually be scoring a lot of points themselves and may not actually keep the ball that long if they're able to run well enough. So I do like Ole Miss -1.5. It's not one of my favorite plays of even of these New Year's Day games that we'll see here, New Year's night in this case. But I just think that this is a game that Lane Kiffin is really going to want to win, and I think he's going to go all out. I mean, even the stuff that you mentioned about Levy, the offensive coordinator, leaving the program, I think Kiffin's got an axe to grind here. I think he's going to be focused. I think he wants to make a point among those former SEC coordinators that are now at sort of mid-tier Power 5 programs. Which one is better? I think he wants to let everybody know it's him. So we'll see how it turns out, but it looks like Nick and I are both on Ole Miss -1.5 as well as over 56 for Christopher Smith. For Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you for the rest of the bowl games.